I'm Roger Bisbee from the Skill Builder channel. Now, what if I told you that a lovely eco-friendly insulation could end up being a living nightmare? That's exactly what's happened to this couple who bought this house for £32 million in London, in Notting Hill, only to find that they were infested with tiny little moths. They woke up in the morning, the place was full of moths. They looked in their cereals in the morning, full of moths, full of larvae. Everywhere they looked, moths, moths, moths. Now, this story comes straight from the High Court because a couple have been fighting a case there. They said that this house that they bought in Notting Hill, as I say, 32 million quid, and then when they moved in, they found these bloody moths were everywhere. They were in the walls, and the reason they were in the walls is because the walls were filled with this lovely eco-friendly wool insulation, and that is just the best thing for a moth. They love it. They got food, they got warmth, they got somewhere to live, they're secure behind the plasterboard, so they just bred and bred and bred, so the whole of the house became infested with these moths. And they were inviting their friends in as well, having a bit of a party there in Notting Hill. So it was an infestation of biblical proportions. So not only did they eat the clothes, they ate the carpets, anything that appealed to moths. Now, this raises an important question if you're considering having wool insulation in your house. Should you go for it? Should you risk this moth infestation? Or is it only in £32 million houses that it happens? Well, sadly not, because it can happen with any wool. If you've got something hanging up in your wardrobe, a lovely jumper, you go to wear it and you find there's a blooming great hole in the middle of it, that's likely to be moths. Not always, but very often. We all know about mothballs, those horrible smelly things that you can put in. So should you put mothballs in your wall before you put the wool insulation in? Well, no. What you should do if you're going to have wool insulation is to make sure that it's treated with an insecticide, something the moths don't like, and that is boron. And it's been around for many years, boron. It's used in all kinds of insecticides and it does the job. It's just a question of whether you actually want your walls filled with insecticide impregnated wool. So eco-friendly doesn't always mean eco-friendly, but if we think about it, it is eco-friendly because it's supplying the food chain, isn't it? The moths eat the wool, and the birds eat the moths, cats eat birds, dogs eat cats, and then who eats dogs?
They're eating the dogs.
In the end, what happened is it went to the High Court, and the High Court decided that the people who sold that house knew all about the moth infestation and should have declared it when they sold the house, because on the questionnaire, the ever-growing questionnaires that you get when you sell a house, it says, was there an infestation of anything like vermin? And the slippery little vendor said, well, moths aren't vermin. And the High Court judge in his wig, hopefully that was protected against moth infestation, decided that moths are indeed vermin and that the vendor should have alerted the prospective buyers to the fact that there was a moth problem. And they did a very clever thing. They phoned around all the different pest control companies in London, and there's quite a lot of those, and they asked them, have you ever visited this property? And sure enough, one of them said, yeah, we visited it 17 times to try and get rid of a moth infestation, and we failed. That was the smoking gun that made sure that the person that sold them that house had to refund their 32 million quid, minus a little bit of money for the fact that they'd been living in that house for quite a while. So if you're thinking of buying a house in Notting Hill, make sure it isn't that one with the moths. I'm Roger Bisbee, and if you've got any fun stories relating to building or anything like that, then send them in, because we all like to gloat, don't we? Somebody buying a £32 million house who comes unstuck.